some of you may or may not know, last year, around this time, I quit my normal 9 to 5 job and decided to do this endeavor full time. I started this podcast back in October of 2020, but I actually had quit my job it was a little later in the year last year. It was around like June or July of last year. And, so I've been doing this for I've been without a job for almost a year now. A corporate job or a normal job, a paycheck job. Let's put it that way, right? But I came across a post on my Facebook that it had shown the this day and time, and then it shows you like what you posted a year ago or a couple years ago or what have you. Well, this post is right around the start of COVID. So I got to take a little time machine jump back a year and see where I was at when COVID first started. And I remember it was pretty hectic. It was pretty crazy. But reading this, it also shows how much pride, how much attention, and how much love that I gave to said company that I worked for. And this wasn't just the only time I was ever like this. I every job that I've ever had, I always try to put my best foot forward and give 110% every single time. And, that's why I kind of wanted to go out on my own, and why I say, and not only in this show, but I've said in other podcasts that I've been on, that I got tired of working for somebody else's dream and wanted to work for my own. And this is a pretty good insight into that. So I wanted to share this with you guys. It's again, this is way before I ever thought about doing this particular podcast, and it was way before I thought about, trying to be an entrepreneur. And this was just me working the job that I had to take care of my family, but taking love in it enough to share with people on a public forum about what's going on. So if you don't mind, just take a second and sit back and check this out. So I wrote this, March 17th, 2020. Well, it's been a crazy few days, but I want to try to help some people out with when our trucks come, so you're not wasting your time and mine when you're coming into our store. First, let me say that at my store, like many others, there's only one produce guy stocking, i.e. me. And unlike our local grocery store, H-E-B, we do not have a night crew of stockers. I get there at 7:30 a.m. and the store opens at 8 a.m. So if you're coming to the store when it opens, chances are you ain't getting the items that you were looking for yesterday, because the shelf is still empty. Now in produce, I do get a truck every day, and I have control over ordering, but it is limited. I can only order veggies, fruits, and some meats, mostly the different types of beef and pork cuts. With that said, even though I get a truck every day, that doesn't mean that it's there early. The driver can arrive as early as 7 a.m., but can also get here as late as noon. It just depends where our store falls on his route. So again, if you come too early, chances are the product being out is going to happen. But if you're kind and you ask me if the truck has arrived yet, I'll be happy to let you know if it has or not. Most of the time, I'll even ask what it is that you're specifically looking for, and then I can go to the back and try to retrieve it for you. Now, the way my ordering works is whatever I order will typically show up the day after. So whatever I order on Monday will come in on Wednesday. But I may not get everything I ordered because of the supply and demand. Our warehouse only delivers to more than one store. They cover pretty much the whole Texas area. So again, if you don't see an item one day, it may come in the next. I will make the trip to the back for you and retrieve said item. But again, I'm the only one in that department, so you have to bear with me and please be patient. Now, the things that I can't order are as such: eggs, yogurt, sandwich meat, cheese, etc. That stuff also comes on my truck every day. That and the stuff I order is known as the FDC truck. Now, the stuff that I can't order comes in based on my sales. So I have to keep an eye on those numbers to make sure that I continue to get those set items. So again, bear with me. If something isn't there and it didn't come on the truck, it could be a number of issues, but I can fix it. But it will also take an extra day or so to arrive. Now, the last things in my area are vendor products: milk, bread, tortillas. Bread comes in on Mondays, the tortillas come in on Tuesdays, and my milk guy will come twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. The tortilla guy and the bread guy stock the shelves themselves, but the milk guy just delivers it. I have to stock that. So again, please give me time. Tuesday and Friday will be the best time to come in for milk, and come in after 12, since again, I never know the time that he will show up. It depends on his route again. And even once he's there, it takes about an hour before it hits the floor, because he has to actually unload his truck. I have to make sure there's room in the cooler, and then he has a designated area where he puts it. So depending on how big the truck is that I got my normal truck, I may have to move things around so he can get in there. So once he unloads the truck, he puts it there, and then I have to take it from there. I have to give it some time to cool as well, because sometimes like if I'm ready for him when he pulls up, I can pull it directly off his truck and straight to the floor. But for the most part, I wait till he puts it in the cooler, and then from the cooler, the back cooler, the walk-in cooler, I can take it to the floor and stock it. So sorry, I kind of went off of my my notes here. Now, for the rest of the store, the toilet paper, the medicine, the hand sanitizer, the cleaning supplies, etc., that stuff comes on its own truck from that's separate from mine. Those trucks only come on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Now again, we do not have a night crew, so the guys get there at 7 a.m. to unload the truck. It typically takes a few hours, depending on the size of the truck. So we have people that come in that work for the store that come in to specifically unload the truck. So it takes a crew of guys and girls to unload a truck and separate it so we know which aisles the products go in. And then it gets downstacked basically in those aisles and gets stocked. So the stuff typically doesn't come out from the back and onto the floor until about 10 a.m. So again, please be patient, and if you don't see an item, just kindly ask one of us and we can find it for you. Everybody walking around that works there has walkie-talkies and a Zebra device to communicate with each other around the store. And the Zebra device can even scan items and also tell you what we have and how much of that said product we actually have in store. And it will also tell you what other stores carry it and how many they have. So just be nice, and we will do as much as we can for you. We also have limits, so please stick to the limits for the said items. If you're not sure, you just ask. Or again, just use your better judgment and don't overbuy. Think of your neighbor. We have been working really hard these past few days, and it's been stressful and emotional. Our store in particular has a really big elderly community, and it breaks my heart having to tell people we don't have something. But I inform them with the truck schedules and how we operate to ensure that they get the items that they need. A lot of them know me by name and can come looking for me at the right time so I can pull what they need fresh off the truck. If you know someone in need, please share this information with them. If they would like to come and see me, send me a PM and I'll tell you what store that I'm at and help them the best that I can. Now, I can't hold products for them, but I can give them time frames to ensure that they get what they need. Sorry this was a long post, and if you made it all the way through, thanks for reading. I also want to say I'm glad for the most part people have been nice and civil towards me. I appreciate their understanding of our lack of goods, and I am thankful that people have shown appreciation for what we are doing. Thank you really does go a long way, and it keeps us going. So that's a post that I shared a year ago during this COVID pandemic, and yeah, it was an interesting time, man. People were freaking out, and we were running out of a lot of stuff, and we had our typical Karens that would come in and whatnot. But for the most part, I took a lot of pride in what I did, and I would post pictures of everything that I was stocking, and I took a lot of pride when I would build end caps, and anytime I stocked something and it looked really nice and full, and I made it look really pretty. I have gobs of pictures on my phone and some you may be listening to this laughing, thinking that that's kind of nerdy or a little weird, but in all honesty, like I said, I take a lot of pride and love and care in what I do in any job that I have, and I really wish the younger generation would do the same. I get very frustrated seeing people that are at work and they have this attitude like the customer's bugging them. I was never like that. And any job that especially in customer service, man, like even if I emotionally wasn't ready to put on that happy face, to seem interested, I still did it. You suck it up and you do it. Speaking of that, there's a video online that you can look for. It's with the teacher, and there's a hall camera, and he's walking to his classroom, and there's him walking to the classroom prior to putting on his teacher face, where he's just kind of walking. He's like, you could tell he probably could have enjoyed another extra hour or two of sleep in bed, and he just doesn't seem like he's ready for the day. He gets up to the door and he kind of puts his shoulders back and he shakes it out and he puts his teacher face on and he goes in, and the kids that it's not the kid's fault that he may have had a crappy morning, so why take it out on them? And it's the same way when you work in customer service. Just because I had a shitty morning doesn't mean that I need to take that out on a customer and be rude and whatnot. They're there to purchase items, and they want their visit to be as pleasant as possible, and so why not, while you're working there, try to make the best of it. So yeah, man, like hopefully that gave you a little food for thought. I always took pride in everything that I did, and when I read that, I do miss the place. I enjoyed working there. I enjoyed the people. Like I said, if there were a few customers there that knew me by name and would come in and say hi, and I knew what days they were coming in, and I was waiting for them, and I built these relationships. And again, I think that's just my mentality in general. That's just how I am. I'm just built that way. I get along with people. I'm very outgoing. I'm a big extrovert. Not everybody's like that, and I understand that. But when you're working with people, regardless how you feel, sometimes you just gotta say screw it, and you gotta put on that happy face. And you just gotta do what you gotta do. And like I said, that to me that was always part of the job. Like not only was ordering very important. Not only was rotating the produce to make sure that the freshest produce got sold, and the bad produce got thrown away or donated. All of that takes, you have to take that in consideration. That all counted, making the shelves look nice and, presentation, the best it could be. All of that is important. But customer service is just as important. I made sure that, when people came to my area, if they needed help finding something, I never made them feel like they were the bother. Now, don't get me wrong, there were customers that would annoy me. People who come in that don't know what they want, or that are just plain rude, or people who come in and grab stuff and then move it and then decide they don't want it. And that's a message that I'll leave you guys with that. I worked in a lot of produce. I worked in a lot of grocery store type places throughout my career of working. And one of the things that I really want you guys to take from this episode is, if you grab something, especially if it's a food item, and you decide you don't want it, take it back to where you got it. You don't know how upsetting it is to come into a store and in the morning I have to clean it up because somebody decided they didn't want chicken and they just threw it on a pile of tomatoes. What you don't understand when you do that is that not only do I have to throw the chicken away because now it's at room temperature, but the chicken juice is now all over the tomatoes. So the entire thing, I can't just throw the tomatoes away that the chicken was sitting on. I have to throw all of it away because of cross-contamination. And you may think to yourself, people don't do that. People do that. I've seen people put a beer, a 6-pack of beer in bottles, put them in the freezer because they just decided they didn't want it, and they just throw it in the freezer thinking that those are the freezers and the coolers are the same, and they're not. And beer has exploded and gone everywhere and gotten all over product that we have to now throw away. Because not only is there beer all over the bags, but then there's little shards of glass all over the bags. So again, don't be selfish, don't be lazy. Think of your neighbor and put stuff away, man. If you don't want something, especially if it's a food item, a cold item, and understand that even though you're walking through the cooler section and they look the same, coolers and freezers are not the same. Where you got your Hot Pockets, and then you walk a little bit, and then maybe you grab something like orange juice. Those two coolers are at two different temperatures, even though they look the same, and they may be like 4 doors away from each other. They're different temperatures, depending on if it needs to be frozen or not. And so people don't think about that. You can buy cold beer at this particular place that I worked at, and this person decided he didn't want it, he or she, and then they just opened a door that looks like where they got their beer from, but it's actually the freezer section, and they put it next to frozen stuff, and the temperature is below zero instead of at a nice crisp 30 degrees. So it basically froze and exploded. Putting raw meat on vegetables or fruits, like, we have to throw that stuff away, regardless if it's chicken, beef, pork, or whatever it is. If it's meat, we have to throw not only the meat away, but we also have to throw whatever it was sitting on. The other thing I want you to take away from this is, if you buy something that's cold and you walk around the store and then you get to the cashier and you think, I don't want that, I decided I don't want that, and you give it back to them, chances are that stuff's going to get thrown out. When you take something to the front, and especially now with COVID being the way it is, like, anything that you touch, they typically, if it's food related, they're going to just throw it out. But pre-COVID, you have to understand that they have a section that all that stuff goes in, and they call people in their respected departments to come and get the stuff. So that milk that you decided you didn't want, or that orange juice that you decided you didn't want, or that chicken that you decided you didn't want, it goes into a bucket and it stays there until I can get up there and get it. And a lot of times I don't even know what's up there. They wait till it gets kind of full, and then they'll call the departments up. So they'll say, hey, grocery, soft lines, and pets, we need you guys up here. Our carts are getting kind of full for returns. And then those people in those selected departments walk up to the front, grab their said items, and then they return them. That's what we call returns. So a return could be sitting up there anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes, all the way up to an hour to 2 hours, depending on, how many people are returning stuff, how quickly those buckets get filled. And there's so much going on up in the cashiers in the front that, even if it's milk, they're not going to sit there and be like, hey, we need you to come get this milk and put it back. Because again, typically the default is to just throw it out, because we're looking at it also, how long were you walking around the store with that milk? Like, we don't know that even if you went to straight to the back, grabbed it, and went straight to the cashier, we don't know that. So typically, if you walk and you get your groceries and you take it up to the front and you decide that you don't want that milk, or you don't want that yogurt, or you don't want that those Eggos, those are going to go straight into the trash. Because we don't know how long, we're not following you around the store, so we don't know how long you've had those out and about. And again, it's wasteful, yes, but it's also that, there are guidelines that we have to follow to make sure that our patrons, our guests, and our customers aren't getting spoiled food. That are everything that they're buying, that they can take home, they can feed to their families, they can eat themselves, and they'll be okay. So you have to keep that stuff in mind. So when you go in and shop, make sure what you're getting is what you want, and then if you don't want it, please take it back yourself, because if you take it to the front, it's just going to get thrown away, and you're not doing the store, you're not doing your neighbors any favors, especially in a situation like this where we're in right now, where food is kind of tight, people are panic buying and stuff like that. Like, think of your neighbors, don't just think of yourself, and understand that we employees, I can't speak for everyone, but I know, like, most people who hear this that work in a department store, especially when food's involved, will probably agree with me that we don't like your kind. If you're the type of person that picks up something, decides you don't want it, and you just throw it wherever, we don't like you. You're making our job harder. And the mentality of like, well, that's why you work here. Yes, but we don't get paid enough to deal with your bullshit. And now that I don't work there, I feel confident to say that because I'm not worried about losing my job now. But you're a piece of shit, honestly. If you go into a store and have that mentality, if you grab something and you put it somewhere else and you decide that you don't want it and you're too lazy to take it to where it belongs, and your mentality is, well, that's what you get paid for. No, you're a piece of shit. You're just making people's jobs harder. Considering that there's so much more that we have to do than to focus on returning garbage that you're too fucking lazy to go and put back. Perfect example, I worked in produce, okay? As a produce guy, I was the only guy over there. Well, I had one other guy that worked produce, but he only worked on my days off. On the days that I worked produce, he was doing other stuff in the store. But on my days off, he was scheduled on my days off, and he would cover for me. He was still by himself. And in produce, you have one guy who controls ordering. So I have to not only order everything, but then when it comes into my truck, I have to organize it. I had 4 boxes in the back. So I had 2 coolers and 2 freezers, essentially. One of them was a cooler that was almost like a freezer. It's where my meat locker. So I had a giant frozen box. I had all the frozen goods in it. I had a cooler that was my main cooler that housed all my milk, all my yogurt, my eggs, my juices, my deli meats, all that stuff. And then I had another cooler that was my produce cooler. I have to keep track of all of that stuff. Not only do I have to organize and date everything as it comes in, so it's first in, first out, but I also had to sweep, mop, and wipe down the walls. Now, when I say wipe down the walls, I mean literally taking a cleaning solution and wiping down the cooler walls to keep them clean and sanitized. The people before me didn't do it, but I did. I always went that extra mile with my job, and I would mop and sweep my coolers. I would try to do it anywhere between 2 to 3 times a week. On top of that, I also had to rotate things. On top of that, I also had people who were worked in other parts of other departments that would come into my my what we call it the ambient room. They would go in there and they just throw crap in there. That's where I kept my donations at. And I would take banana boxes and I'd write donation on them, and I'd had them organized by, here's for the pet guys, here's for the grocery guys, and my dry goods, my wet goods, all that stuff was separated and organized. I did that. I chose to do that. And then I had a spot for my potatoes and my onions and all that stuff that I had to keep organized. My bananas had to be rotated. All of that stuff was done, and I wasn't even there full time. I was a part timer. There's no full timers at the store that I worked at. Only the leads got that shit. So I literally would work a 6 to 7 hour day, 5 days a week, and they expected me to do a 40-hour work week in about anywhere between 30 and 32 hours. And not only was I doing that, but then I also had to we had price changes like once a week. So price changes, when you go into a store and you see those white tags that have the prices that go across the whole shelf, yeah, we have to replace those. And they're long strips of paper that you have to replace. Not only do you have to replace them, but sometimes things move around. And so they're constantly changing the store and the layout. So they don't have a special team that comes in and does that. The person who works at the department does that. And so I would have to rotate and move product around and change prices and put out sell tags. The sales tags come out every Sunday, so we would have to do that. I would have to build end caps. When we had any type of displays that were being built, I had to build those. I also had to keep track of what I was pushing. I had to keep track of my numbers, because when the higher-ups would come in, even though I wasn't a manager, that's the one thing I hated about this store was that when higher-ups came in, they would come to me and I would have to know sales numbers, even though it didn't benefit me. There was no reason for me to know numbers. I didn't make any bonuses or any extra money by knowing what my numbers were on freaking avocados. And I had to explain to the higher-ups why I design my area the way I did, because we get a lot of freedom to do that. I can make my middle rack where I keep all my avocados and my onions and potatoes and my tomatoes, my limes, my lemons, my apples, all that stuff, oranges. I can design that table any way that I want. And I had to basically explain to the higher up why I did it that way, how I affected the numbers. And when I would switch things around, if something wasn't selling, I'd push it. And so like I would make like, let's say like around this time of year, people are watching sports and stuff. And so I would make like my vegetable table would have all the makings for like guacamole. So I'd have all the tomatoes and the onions and the avocados and the limes. I'd have them all kind of within arm's reach of each other. And so when my boss would come in and I talk to him, I tell him why I did it, why it looked that way. And then I would explain the numbers of like, well, since I moved the avocados from here to there, sales have gone up 30%, and we're seeing, this change and that change, and this is what I'm doing with the bakery goods and all that stuff. I had to know all that stuff. I didn't get paid extra for that, but I had to know it. And all of this was on top of also having to throw my truck. I got a truck every day, so I had to stock all my stuff and be aware of rotation as well. And we did what was called culling, which is going through and finding out-of-date stuff, finding fruits and vegetables that are past their ripeness, and we gotta get rid of them. So I had to do all of that. So for you to come in and take something that you don't want and just throw it wherever and be like, well, that's your job, put it away. No, fuck you. I have way more important things going on, and you're just adding to that stress. So I want you to take that into account. If you're one of those people, I don't want to single you out, but if you're one of those people, understand that there's a lot of moving parts to make these stores as efficient as to move as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. And you have to understand that we have a lot on our plates, especially this particular company. I don't know how the other maid competition works, but this one, they put a lot on the shoulders of their employees. And that we can go into the whole $15 minimum wage conversation if you'd like one day. I can make an episode where we talk about that. But why I'm against minimum wage, why I'm against the $15 minimum wage. I'm against minimum wage being a thing to begin with. But to call for $15 minimum wage, there's a reason why I don't want it. And in particular, there's multiple reasons, but one of the main reasons within the store that I worked in is because we got put up to $15 an hour, and because of that, they started adding more and more work. You don't get more hours. You get the same amount of hours, but you get more work. And so you end up having to do what you could accomplish in a 40-hour work week, but they want you to accomplish it in 20 hours, 25 hours, 30 hours. So you're not, the money's not worth it. It's not worth the stress. It's not worth the hassle. And ask anybody who works in a big corporate department store, and they'll tell you you're arguing for that type of money. But the people who are actually making that money and have seen the change in that over time will understand. Remember earlier in this episode, I was talking about there's people that used to go in. There's people that go in early in the morning and unload the truck. Prior to the money going up hourly, they used to have a team that did that. That was specifically their job. Their job was to control the back room, make sure it stayed clean, make sure it stayed organized, unload the truck, and make sure the stockers had everything that they needed. Over time, those group of people disappeared, and they just became normal stockers. So you have a guy who works the detergent area, and he works chemicals. And there was a time when chemicals was his job. When a truck came in, he did that. He threw the truck. But he didn't have to take it off the truck. There was a group of people who would take the stuff off the truck, put it on the what we call U-boats, which is the giant things that we bring out that allow us to stock off of, right? So you had a team that would unload the truck, put it on U-boats, and then the stalker would come and grab the U-boat, take it to the floor, and stock it. So you had two different teams doing two different things. Well, now, guess what? You make $15 an hour. We're going to get rid of that team that unloads the truck. And that same guy who throws chemicals is also that same guy that's there at 7 in.the.morning unloading the truck. When he's done unloading the truck, now he has to take it out and stock it. Unloading the truck's not easy, and it doesn't happen quickly. It takes a few hours. It got to the point where, especially during holidays, where they have our guys who are unloading trucks, they're going in at as early as 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And they're still not getting the stuff out on the floor until about 9 o'clock in the morning. So you do the math. Although the money goes up, we lose workers, and they start putting the pressure on the people that already work there to do double the workload. So that's one of my big main issues, and we saw it happen. We saw the change happen. And again, it's the same thing with what my job description was. I was produce. I was the only guy working there. If I didn't show up to work, then they were in a lot of trouble, because you have trucks coming in daily for produce. And so I have to stay on top of it. And if you guys as customers are coming in and making my area where I'm having to constantly clean up because no one else is going to clean it, you come over and you break something in my aisle, I'm the one that has to clean it. I had a customer who did that. They went around the corner, knocked over a bunch of wine, walked off, didn't tell nobody, and just walked off. I saw them from like 7 aisles over. They just looked at it, looked around. Okay, no one saw me, and they just kept going. They didn't even bother to tell anybody. I had to go clean that up. That took away time that I could have been using to unload the truck, to be ordering stuff, to deal with the vendor, to get product out, to rotate product out, to building a new end cap, all that stuff. So again, just take that into consideration. Be nicer to these employees. They're going through a lot, especially with COVID going on and people freaking out. These people are dealing with a lot of stuff, man. And I feel for them. And every time I go into a store, I mean, my wife knows it now because now she worked at the same store that I did. She's still there, but she just doesn't work as many hours. She does like maybe one day a month. She literally stays there so we can keep our discounts. But she understands now. When we first started dating, she'd see me like sometimes I would grab something off the shelf, and then I'd go ahead and front if it needed to be fixed, I'd fix the area of that aisle just a little bit, just to make it look a little nice. It was just me giving the fellow coworker even if it's from a different store and company, just a little nod, like, hey man, I got you. I understand. I get it. I'm not asking you to do that, but what I am asking is just don't be lazy. If you see something or you grab something, you decide you don't want it, take it back where it belongs. Put it back. Especially if it's a food item. That's a loss for the company. That's a loss for somebody else who could have possibly got that item and fed their family with it, fed themselves with it. Just don't be a selfish individual. Don't be a prick. Think of others and, try to contribute to the positiveness that this society needs more than anything right now. But with that said, I made this episode a little longer than I wanted to. But with that said, I hope you guys had fun. I hope you learned something from it. And if you think I'm a dick for the way I think, then so be it. But yeah, join our Facebook group. Add us on Instagram. Check out our YouTube page. Leave a comment. Let me know what this episode, like, how it hit you. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, share your opinions down in the comments. And let me know. I'd love to read it and have that dialogue with you guys. If you want to be a part of the show, you want to send me something, you want to ask a question, or if you're interested in being a guest, you can always reach me personally at cognitivediscoursepodcast@gmail.com. That's cognitivediscoursepodcast@gmail.com. Send me a message or send me an email, and I'll get back to you. And if we can get you on the show, or if you have a question that I can answer on the show and create some dialogue around, I'd be all for it. But with that being said, you enjoy your Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And until next time.